The Baltimore Ravens took down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. This is the reaction, recap, and also just overall Ravens discussion episode. So, welcome everybody, and let's talk about it. Obviously, the final score is 41-31, but anyone that watched the game would have recognized that the game was nowhere near that close. When I was watching the game, because I'm a coach at nighttime, so I watched the first quarter, went to practice, got home, and watched the rest of the game. So I went to practice with the Ravens sitting it lose down 10-0. And I was like, I was kind of nervous. I was at practice. I get home. I wait like 20 minutes, make sure the game's over, go to my recordings, finish the game. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, good, we're all right. Because on the first, drive, the Ravens go out there and the offensive line just butchers back-to-back plays. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers send a blitz. I think the issue was Makari at left guard. He kind of saw both blitzers. He faked to one, tried to get the other, missed them both. And Justice Hill tried to pick up the block, but he couldn't because he was trying to go to the opposite of Makari, and they were both jumping back and forth. And it was just like, we could be in for a rough game because this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line is very good. And so I'm watching the Manning cast, as I'm sure most people prefer over Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, but I'm watching that. And the nice thing about that, or negative thing, is they don't actually bring up a lot of the statistics while players are playing. So I'm just kind of watching and getting a feel for what I think is happening. And the Ravens are, they get the ball back finally, after it's 10-0, and they completely flip the script. Lamar Jackson just starts like Lamar Jackson got to that level that we've seen him get to it before, but I don't even know what to kind of call it, where it just feels like he's gliding, right? He's floating through everything. It almost feels effortless. He's not trying too hard. He's obviously making unbelievable plays. They run cover zero, they blitz a guy off the right edge. Lamar Jackson sees him, hand up, back pedals, rolls out, points, Bateman 40 yards down the field. And you're just like, dude, what the I feel like Amon Shumpert talking about Kobe Bryant. We're like, what is he on right now? Like, how is he doing this? But the Ravens, the offense just clicked all of a sudden after that first quarter. And you have to give credit to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. They held them in the first quarter. They did a very good job. But Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry just proved to be too much. And what I love about this combination is, while I'm watching this game, I want to say Derrick Henry only had about 5 first half carries. I'm watching this game and I'm like, man, if I was Derrick Henry, I'd be pissed. Like we're not giving him the ball. And obviously the Ravens had 2 kind of 2-minute drives at the end of the second half. So like that's why Justice Hill was in a little bit more. But it just felt like it was like, man, we're not giving Derrick Henry the ball. Luckily, Lamar Jackson and company were able to make a lot of big plays. First being the Mark Andrews touchdown pass, and then the screen pass, and then we finished off the half with the field goal. But it was like, oh, wow, Derrick Henry's really not getting involved. Luckily, Lamar Jackson in the passing game is really working. What I love about this passing game is the development we've seen from week 1 to now. Remember week 1, and we're like, man, we're like not getting Zay the ball, but like Bates not doing anything. Like it's really kind of just Isaiah Likely with like the passing game early on. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, Zay's taken off. Little Zay Flowers. And man, Mark Andrews, he's not really getting involved. I wish we could see more Bateman. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Charlie Kolar's getting involved now. And Mark Andrews last week kind of had his big week of coming out, got his first touchdown of the year. And then this week it comes back and it's like, oh, Mark Andrews looks like he's back. And Bateman has a career day. So this Baltimore Ravens offense is not just, hey, it's one receiver you have to watch out for, and then obviously the running game. Like every aspect that you're trying to stop, there's multiple elements. Oh, you want to stop the Ravens pass? Okay, who are you stopping? You want to guard Zay? Okay, well, Bateman is now showing that you can rely on him in a game and he will make those big plays. All right, so you want to make sure that, we're going 2 over top. They're not going to be as deep. Okay, we'll hit the crossers in the intermediate area, whether it's Bateman, Andrews, Likely, Zay, they can all do it. There's multiple facets to the passing game, but there's also multiple facets to the run game, because almost every team in the NFL, if you say, I want to stop the run, you're focusing on one guy. Whether that is the quarterback or the running back, it differs, but generally it's the running back. if you want to stop the Ravens run game, first of all, the Ravens kill you on interior runs. They also kill you on the toss. They kill you on the stretch. They kill you on the Lamar Jackson scrambles. They do absolutely everything. And when teams are trying to stop the run, they're running a little bit more man coverage because their players are facing, um, they're trying to get all those things involved. The issue with man coverage is if it's a pass, Lamar Jackson can scramble unless you have a spy. And if you have a spy, that reduces the pass rush. Zay, Bate, Likely, Mark Andrews, all incredible separators. And then if you go to zone coverage, the Ravens are just going to go out there and Lamar Jackson is just dinking and dunking. He has found the ability that it takes a lot of players to do. Quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends. Arguably the greatest ever at it is Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, in terms of finding a soft spot in this, like that's what makes Travis Kelce so great. He's so smart with it. Lamar Jackson is getting to a level where he sees zone coverage and he knows exactly where he's trying to hit a guy. And we saw that on the touchdown to Mark Andrews. It was kind of a botched coverage, but you just see him throw it underneath. We see an RPO where we just see Lamar Jackson look outside, and I think it was Zay or Bateman outside. It's kind of like a bubble. But then we had Isaiah Likely just running a quick hitch. Lamar hits him, first down. The quick decision-making in this pass game and just the overall like overbearing nature of the run game is what's making this Ravens offense so incredibly difficult to stop. The only way, I think it was Belichick that said it, but he was like, the only way the Ravens get stopped is when they stop themselves. And that's pretty true, right? Some good blitzes by Tampa Bay was able to get that stop, but also it's just like, oh, like, yeah, they blitzed, but it should have been picked up. It was a Ravens critical error by the guard and running back trying to figure out who they should block. The other thing was the Ravens, I think, had maybe the first ever second and goal from like the 38-yard line, which was pretty funny because the first play was an incomplete pass and they got holding, and offensive pass interference. But they just have a way of utilizing every aspect of their passing game now. The screen game it's the best in the league at this point. Justice Hill in the screen game. We're going to get Keaton Mitchell in the screen game at some point soon. Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. It's working very well because teams don't know when the Ravens are trying to run or pass. And they're just kind of it's just devastating. It's deflating to go out there and you get the Ravens in a third and long. And Justice Hill swings out of the backfield, catches it with blockers, and takes it 20 yards. Like, it's like Peyton Manning said, like, why don't they run that play every time? It's like a guaranteed 20 yards. So this Ravens offense has been fantastic. And when you're thinking at halftime like I was, and I'm like, man, Derrick Henry's really not getting that involved. Kind of unfortunate. I got him in fantasy. Like, come on, where is he? He's been helping the team. I really don't care about fantasy when I'm watching. I care about just the Ravens winning. But I'm like, come on, I want to get Derrick Henry involved, see what he can do. I know Tampa Bay has a good defensive line, at least. And then the second half happens. And it's just like, now they're focusing on the pass because Lamar Jackson has just been dicing up the defense. He only had, 5 incomplete passes? Yeah, 17 for 22. And then Derrick Henry just starts breaking runs. He breaks the 50-yard run, and I think it was an 81-yard run. And you're like, oh, Derrick Henry's got 160 yards in this game, in a game where it felt like he wasn't even doing very much. Not because he was like playing poorly, but more because the Ravens offense was going in different directions, right? They were just passing the ball a little bit more. They were going a little bit more up tempo, but they slow it down. They bring Derrick Henry in the third and fourth quarter when the opposing defense is tired because they're chasing Bateman. They're chasing, Mark Andrews, and Derrick Henry just started breaking them. I mean, if I was a defensive coordinator, any defensive coordinator, not just in the NFL right now, ever, like I don't know what I would do in order to stop them. Like, you really just have to hope that the Ravens beat themselves on offense because they truly do have a way. It's a pick your poison, but there's just so many poisons. Right. And if anybody plays fantasy football, they probably get frustrated. I know some people that started Zay Flowers and they're frustrated because, like, man, Zay didn't go off. Like, what are we doing? Some people start Justice Hill. He doesn't go off. Like, The only thing that you can really rely on is, knock on wood, like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry right now. But everyone else is getting involved. It's just a matter of matchups. Some other things about this game that we have to point out is what the heck is going on with this onside kicking game. Teams are 2 for 3 against the Ravens, which is pretty pretty awful. They're the only team that's allowed an onside kick. They've allowed 2. Luckily, they won both of those games, but that's a big aspect why the score ended up being 41-31, because the Buccaneers, I think they got one more touchdown after. So they got the onside kick at like 3 minutes and 46 seconds left, I believe. If the Ravens get that, they end the game. It's 41-24. That's not that big of an issue. Um, but because they got an onside kick, and I can't remember which one they got. They might have gotten the one after the first fourth quarter touchdown. But either way, the Ravens would have been able to chew the clock a lot rather than them just going out and saying goodbye. Like, luckily, the NFL only allows for 2 onside kicks in a game, which honestly I think is kind of a stupid rule. I'm not a big fan of that, but Harbaugh knew the rule apparently, or at least that's what people are saying. Which kudos to Harbaugh, brother of Jim. But this was just one of those games where you're watching it, and I don't know what's in the water on Mondays for Lamar Jackson, but he just seems to play his best football. Well, I mean, not even just Monday. I mean, like just prime time. Like maybe the only reason it seems that way is because the national media is more, in tune to what's happening. 1 o'clock, they're playing the Cleveland Browns this Sunday. I don't think a lot of people are necessarily going to be watching the game. So the inevitable plays Lamar Jackson makes in that game won't be as magnified. Whereas when you're watching on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football and you see Lamar Jackson beat a cover 0, throw it deep to a guy, and you're like, oh, wow. You see him against the Jaguars last year, break out of a sack and throw like a 40-yard jump ball to Isaiah Likely, and he scores it. You're like, whoa, this guy's unreal. And the whole world gets to see it. And I want to say it was the Pat McAfee show, which shout out to them. They always do a good job of talking about multiple sports, and they're entertaining about it. I don't watch a lot of sports talk shows. I'm just not a big fan of it. But I saw the clip where they're talking about he said, I just want the Ravens to make the Super Bowl for the sense that the people in other countries, the people that don't watch football ever except for the Super Bowl, like they'll turn on the game and they'll just see like Derrick Henry, like 250-pound Derrick Henry running at 21 miles an hour. And they're like, whoa, what happened here? Like, where they allow this now? Like, what is this in football? And then they see Lamar Jackson, like, doing Lamar Jackson things, and they're like, what the heck is going on? Because it's such a different experience than every other team in the NFL. And, I'm not ready to go on the record and say the Ravens are the best team in the NFL. I think as a whole, they might be. It just comes down to how well they'll play against the Chiefs, because we know they haven't played their best ball against the Chiefs. But at the same time, I'm not one of those people that says like, oh man, it's Lamar's fault. It's just like, no, hey, the team as a whole didn't beat them earlier in this year. But hey, if the Ravens are to make the playoffs, if they are to play the Chiefs in the playoffs, it's a whole new game. They got to go out there and they got to try and, right those wrongs. But right now, they are playing out of this world. Lamar Jackson's the leading candidate for the MVP. And I put out a tweet after like week 3, maybe 4, because some people were talking about like, oh, Lamar could win MVP. And I said really the only way Lamar's winning MVP is if, he puts up 4,000, 1,000, or if the Ravens win out, because Derrick Henry's going to, have a lot of that spotlight. He's going to have a ton of rushing yards. And that was at a point where he wasn't necessarily on a 2,000-yard pace. It was more like, hey, Derrick Henry's going to have a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. The Ravens already lost to the Chiefs in prime time, so it'll be difficult to win. But then I said, remember, the Ravens brought in Derrick Henry not to help Lamar Jackson win the MVP. They brought him in to help the Baltimore Ravens win the Super Bowl. That's the goal. So as cool as MVP talk, as cool as, statistical seasons, 4,000, 1,000, 2,000 yard rushing season, two 1,000 yard receiver paces with Zay and Bateman. As cool as that is, the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, brother of Jim Harbaugh, they do not care. They're focused on week after week. This is not a team that is going to try and get too high on its horse. They did that in 2019, and luckily there's no Derrick Henry to do that to us in the playoffs anymore. But they got to take it week to week, can't get hit by any trap games, and take care of business. And that's what I hope they'll be able to do against Cleveland. That's how they've been doing it since that 2-game losing streak. But, you have to remember with the Ravens losing the first 2 games of the season, every year, I believe in the history of the Baltimore Ravens, pretty sure, they've lost at least 2 games. The problem was the Ravens lost to a very good team, and then they lost to a bad team. That happens every year, right? Last year we lost to the Colts in overtime, and it was like, that's a horrible loss. But the thing was, they always seem to lose a game to a team that's really bad. Unfortunately, we lost to the Giants. Lamar Jackson's one NFC loss. Like, it just happens. And if that happens, week 8, and that happens, they lose to the really good team week 14, no one bats an eye. But because they had their 2, bad weeks, you could say. I don't even think the Chiefs was like a bad week. Like, remember, they lost with a toe on the line. But that happens, and all of a sudden the Ravens are like written off by the national media. This is a really good football team. They've got unbelievable talent. The defense is looking like it's getting better. Marlon Humphrey's catching picks. Hopefully he's able to play this weekend. If he's not, Nate Wiggins, he's been looking good. Arthur Millette's coming back. And then Jalen Armour Davis is coming back from injury as well, potentially this week, but more likely next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. This team is unlike any team I've ever seen. I mean, the numbers they're putting up, the most yards per play in, recorded NFL history, beating out the greatest show on turf, Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. I mean, that's a Hall of Fame caliber team right there, Super Bowl winning team. And then most rush yards per attempt, beating out the 1963 Cleveland Browns back with, the great Jim Brown. So this team is fantastic. They're playing at a level that, hopefully can't be matched, but really they got to keep a clean head. We got to sit back and enjoy, weeks like this. It may not last the entire season, the 300-yard passing game with a 200-yard rushing game. That's probably not going to last every week. So we got to sit back, we got to enjoy it and just kind of witness what we all thought could be what happened when we got Derrick Henry. And I said years ago, I used to make TikToks on, overall NFL, and they're like, oh, if you're building a dream team, what would it be? And I had said, I was like, Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry, because it's just like their play styles would complement each other so well. And it would just be an unstoppable force. I said this years ago. This was not some sort of thing like, oh, if the Ravens brought, no, it was just some like build your own offense post that I made a video on. So a lot of fun to watch this team. NBA, my NBA starts tonight. OKC fan. So if you guys are basketball fans, let me know who your favorite team is. I know a lot of people are Wizards fans, which is kind of unfortunate. They're not very good this year. But if you guys have favorite players, favorite teams, let me know. Thank you so much. Subscribe for more, and I'll see y'all again next time. I'll try and make another video either tomorrow or Saturday going over some other news as well. So thank you. See y'all again then.